Welcome to the In My Opinion show with Ronald Barry Robinson and friends. To our viewing and listening audiences, this show will be a provocative and thought-provoking. We will discuss and our conversations may consist of topics that are unpopular. The subject matter discussed may be such that other people don't want or will not talk about or are scared to discuss. This includes the media, whether it is electronic or print. We will try to provide accurate and up-to-date accounts of our world and the people that shape those policies and or events. We will not, and I repeat, straddle any fences or deceive you in bringing truth to light in our opinions on various subject matter. As always, this show encourages you to respond to any material discussed that you may or may not agree with. As always, your opinions do matter. Our email address is, in my opinion, rbr@aol.com. We have a very spectacular panel with us. Let me introduce Mr. Henry Hatter.
Good evening, Ron.
Mrs. Tracy Blackwell.
Happy New Year, Ron.
And Mrs. Osha Weaver.
Hello, Ron.
Welcome all to the In My Opinion show. Let's talk about this. I'm confused. Christine Beatty, top aide to former Detroit Mayor Kwame Kilpatrick, was sentenced to 120 days, as was Kilpatrick, in what has been dubbed as the whistleblower caper. The two career Detroit police officers that attempted to expose Beatty and Kilpatrick's love affair and parties at the Manoogian Mansion lost their jobs, and their credibility was destroyed, but was awarded over $8 million as a result of wrongful discharge for exposing both Kilpatrick and Beatty. These two officers were stripped of their dignity and respect from friends and community. These two officers were also investigating a party at the Detroit mayoral mansion where strippers were allegedly to have performed. In addition to one of the mansion's strippers, allegedly a girlfriend of Kilpatrick was killed, murdered in Atlanta, Georgia. Was that murder a part of a cover-up? The state attorney general's office and the Michigan State Police supposedly investigated these allegations and found that there was no party at the mansion and that the attack by Mayor Kilpatrick's wife did not occur. I think this is cover-up. What do you think, Henry?
Well, Ron, I'm not familiar with all of the details of the case or the merits of the case, but I've heard allegations, and until someone steps forward and actually with some proof, some evidence that this did happen, I would still consider this speculation. I'm surprised that the Attorney General, who is a Republican, did not bring forth credible evidence. So you have to look at that. And if this Republican didn't find something wrong with it, he was either in bed with the mayor, or there was nothing there. And I think that you have to have some belief in the integrity of the justice system. So I could not speak more to the credibility of the case. I do know Mike Cox, and I do think that Mike Cox is a credible individual. But the allegations just sound really lurid and truthful.
Well,
But
you
I
know,
have yet no evidence.
well, I have to disagree with you in terms of Attorney General Cox and his credibility, because here a couple years ago, I mean, he divulged the fact that he was playing a little hanky panky with a female other than his wife.
Yeah, he came out and divulged that. That
Hmm.
was the thing to do. You couldn't live with a lie, and nobody wanted Mike Cox to set an attorney general with that kind of allegation against him. Well, it wasn't an allegation, that kind of a posture against him. He actually broke the law, he deceived the public, and he repented.
But he lied, so he's no different than Kilpatrick or Beatty.
Well, I'm not so sure that there's a strong difference. But if somebody was killed by a mayor who sits in a public office with the intent to protect the people's interest, and he kills someone, there's something grossly wrong with that.
Well, we don't know if that occurred or not. Him,
Yeah.
him being responsible for that stripper's death in Atlanta, which that remains to be seen, because I think there's going to be a federal investigation. At least there should be a federal investigation of the Michigan Attorney General's office, as well as the Michigan State Police.
Based on what?
based upon these allegations. They give these two discredited police officers $8 million. I mean, more or less, that was kind of like hush money. I mean, I'd be inclined to think that in order to get that kind of money, they probably signed some statements saying that, okay, this is the end.
I agree that the condition with the two police officers is tragic.
They
That's tragic.
destroyed these
Yeah.
people, these
Okay,
men.
But they got $8 million.
Well, yeah.
yeah.
They were compensated. But I have a concern about Mr. Hatter's opinion that Mike Cox's adultery was a breaking incident. I don't think adultery is against the law.
Well, it's against the intent of the law, if you will.
Okay.
Okay, you're right, but it's not. But we should not
I like the
diminish that.
standard you have for it, but
Yeah, but we should not diminish
No.
the use of that kind of behavior while you're in a public office because people
Or
can
period.
bribe you. They
yeah.
can bribe you, and then this is where the law breaks down. If you're bribed for that somebody knows something on you and they force you to do things that you would not otherwise do, that's criminal.
Mm.
Hmm. Tracy, anything more to add?
You know what? That story is so salacious. Any opinion I would have would be rumor and speculation. It really would.
Well,
And
that's an opinion, so share it with our multitude of viewers.
well, I understand from the Detroit community some things that we in this area may not have known is that Christine Beatty and the mayor had a very long term relationship. Um, and so it was almost natural with the way they ended up. The other thing I understand is that his wife really is not one to be played with, and as it relates to her partnership with her husband. So, I wouldn't want to comment on anything, and you won't find me at any parties.
Especially at the Manugian
Manugia
Mansion.
Mansion.
Well, they say variety is the spice of life.
Right. Well, I think she just went and started serving her sentence. I think he's halfway
Today,
through
yeah,
his
120 days,
mhm.
three hots in a cot.
Right.
Mhm.
So,
But you cannot overlook the fact that that administration was filled with corruption from beginning to end. The Kilpatricks.
interesting.
Yeah.
Well, his dad is also under investigation by the feds as well. Osha, do you have any thoughts?
Well, I have to say this is one story that I have not followed, and this is something that I don't feel that I should comment on because I don't know the facts of this story, so therefore I cannot give an opinion on this. But innocent, until proven, and getting all the facts is very important in this kind of situation before going on to address someone as a guilty.
Absolutely.
But
absolutely.
I would still like to add that we should not um, dismiss this kind of situation. This is serious.
Mhm.
And as Black Americans tend to gain much more prominence in public office, we need to create the platform for the new people, and they should have a demeanor that's fitting for the public, that the public would want uh, to accept from them. So
Yeah, it reminds me of this thing that you should have a certain type of narcissistic almost personality to be willing to go into politics. Because I think about Blagojevich and Kwame Kilpatrick and senator from Alaska. And these people do some horrendous things, some horrible things are said about them in the court of public opinion. And they don't step down. No, I'm going to keep my
Hmm.
office. No, I'm going to keep my seat. I would be so ashamed and embarrassed. I would go directly home. But with Kwame and having this standard of excellence that we have for our political figure, it's not there. And these people don't even have it for themselves because when they're kind of shown their errors are shown publicly, they still don't
Hmm.
you know unseat themselves. So that I find that fascinating. I really do. I would be so embarrassed I would not come back in public view.
Well, that's why you would make an extremely good public figure. You have a set of standards, a code of ethics that most Americans can identify with.
Right.
We can't identify with everybody that goes
Mm-hmm.
into public office, and they have ulterior motives, and we can't predict that at the polls. So we have to take a chance.
Mhm.
And there are some really good people serving in public office. I would say eh, more than average that are good and tend to do well while they're in a public office and honor their positions as spouses,
Mm-hmm.
whether they're men or women, and they honor the public trust that the public gives to them while they're there. And so we need to never forget those. It's unfortunately we live in a democracy, and in a democracy you're held innocent until you're found guilty, and there is the quagmire there. You know, you have to go through a litany of things to find out whether you are going to be proven guilty or
Mhm.
not. And there's
Mhm.
so many loopholes to it.
And one thing that I do want to say is that a lot of people, especially a lot of American people don't really care about a politician's personal life. They feel it is just that, their personal life, and that really we should not, get involved. So whenever something is done, by a politician, they might feel like, well, if they're doing their job, what business is it of ours if
Mm.
it's not affecting, what they do, what they're there to do as a politician. A
Mhm.
lot
Mm-hmm.
of people do feel that way.
Can
Well, and people also say that if you would do those kinds of things privately, you're probably using the same standard publicly. So if
Definitely.
you cheat, lie, and steal privately, you'd probably use those same characteristics with public funds, with public resources and things like that. But yeah, and I have to be. I tend to agree with you, Osha. I really don't want to know your private business. I really don't. But once it's come to the light, and generally it comes to, people don't expose people for being grand and great and nice and
Mm-hmm.
sweet. They
Exactly.
expose them for being cheats and things like that. And generally that's when you start to say, okay, now I have some concerns, or I'll look a little closer at some of the public dealings that these people have been involved in.
I think that any person who goes into public service of any kind should be scrutinized.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it is your responsibility to see that people what their records are like, how they live their lives, because they're setting standards for your kids and standards for other kids. They're setting standards for the new generation, and we need to have people that we can believe in, that we can depend on, that we
Mm-hmm.
can trust.
Mhm.
They're spending your money. They're putting laws down in the register to govern you, and you're saying to them, well, it's okay as long as you govern me, but we won't hold you to be governed
Well,
yourself. You
Mm-hmm.
can govern
remember
yourself.
remember Bill Clinton who didn't inhale? When we start looking at the generations and what generations experience, we talked about this previously with the young people and the tattoos. By the time people get to be 40 and 50, people who are now 20 or 30, what kinds of things are we going to be forgiving them for that they did in their past that we're not going to hold them accountable for as at that age while they finally matured and decided that they want to do
Mm-hmm.
service to their community? Are we going to hold them harmless for smoking weed or having a tattoo on their neck and those kinds of things?
The public will set the standard. Now, and we can't hold the public guilty of anything that it chooses to do. If the public, through a variety of votes, decide that it wants to elect Barack Obama, the first African American of the United States, it can do that,
Hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
it can do it with authority and confidence, and 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 with permanence. And it's not up to us to go back and undo that. But that's the public. If the public does not want you to have tattoos on your neck and votes and votes you out of office because you have these tattoos, it is not a racial situation. It's a standard that the public is is not willing to forgive,
Hmm.
Hmm.
and the public is always bigger than we are as individuals.
Did
Absolutely.
Dennis Archer wear a diamond earring?
I don't think so.
Oh, okay. Because you know Kwame did.
Oh yeah.
Who did?
Kwame did. Kwame
Yes, he did.
Kilpatrick had it.
Who in the hell left the gate open? I wouldn't have given them shit. Bailout to exceed several trillion dollars when the bean counters finish dividing the spoils. What's a few more trillion dollars of taxpayer money? If only Jesse James and Bonnie and Clyde were alive to see this and had used pencils and pens instead of guns. The end is near for America as a superpower. America will go down the tubes as the Roman Empire did, the Ottoman Empire did, as the United Kingdom and Russia has. America has mortgaged her soul to China and the new emerging super and to China, the new emerging superpower. In fact, according to reliable sources, China owns trillions in American real estate, and the United States is in debt to China for loans totaling tens of trillions of dollars. Only a fool fails to profit from their mistakes. I guess the American public has been the biggest fool of all time. My suggestion would be to stop investing in these financial institutions. Our elders had the right idea. Keep your wealth buried in the backyard or under the mattress. In my opinion, buy gold and diamonds and then bury them in hopefully a safe place, because if you put them in a safety deposit box, that financial institution will probably go insolvent, and then you're again left out in the cold. According to the Washington Post, 163 billion dollars of the first 700 billion dollars has already gone to pay dividends to investors on Wall Street, and another 70 billion dollars of the bailout tax dollars has gone to pay bonuses to those Wall Street white collar pimps, hustlers, and thieves. To add insult to injury, more billions have gone to Bear Stearns, AIG, Morgan Stanley, Lehman Brothers, Bank of America, and a host of other for-profit financial institutions. Nothing has trickled down to the everyday American. Now we have a dude named Madoff that stole $50 billion and has ruined millions. Of all these billions for the thieves and Ponzi brokers of Wall Street that have destroyed this nation's economic system, where were the government regulators, the Security and Exchange Commissioners? Henry, what is your feeling on these this situation, which is terrible for the American public, as far as as far as the world economy is concerned too, because that old saying is, when America coughs, the rest of the world catches a cold.
Well, Ron, you've done the criticism for me, and I don't need to go back to that because they are wrong. What they did is exactly as you say that they did. They stole from the public. They stole from people like us. Those are people at the top and people who invested in homes that they know that they couldn't pay for. And I think that we're talking about Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae, right? Those are the loan groups that we're talking about. And Freddie Mae is, I believe, the national loan um, group that was created within Congress to loan monies to uh, institutions
Mm-hmm.
for business and for other reasons. And Freddie Mac was the federal loan arm that was created within Congress. And it was operated by private enterprise and self-regulated to some degree. So if you give that kind of latitude without bounds to institutions or individuals, you set them up for failure. This is what Congress did when they created that. They gave them no oversight. They stole directly from the American people with Congress setting, looking over them. What a sad situation that was. And then, who has to pay for these losses? Somebody
Mm-hmm.
won, somebody gained something, and many people lost. Okay, and who has to pay for them? It's the American taxpayer. So what they will do is go in, the government will guarantee loans. They will take and tax future loan guarantees, just like a TIF, tax increment financing, and all of that for the future. And they will put that burden on the new generation. And this country will get poorer and poorer as a result of that. And it's, I think it's a very sad situation to have allowed that to happen. Now, I used to be a free enterpriser, 100%, but I am no longer uh, thrilled about free enterprise unregulated. I think that all businesses, all individuals need oversight. They need government oversight. That laissez-faire situation with businesses, for me, is
Mm-hmm.
gone.
Hmm. My opinion is that, we elect generally lawyers, to be
Mm-hmm.
policymakers. These are not bankers and accountants and business people who have run businesses. Of course, there's some who may have had the experience before they went into uh, lawmaking or politics. But these lawyers, they don't know. They feel like they don't have the best opinion or expertise to be able to do that. That's why they don't like regulations, because they feel like they're not the best one to make the decisions. But in my opinion, I can't understand why we gave $700 billion anyway, and then we didn't even have to spend all of it initially. Remember
Mm-hmm.
I remember that was November, September. No, it was November. Um, the vote saying if this doesn't happen today, we're going to be wiped out as a country. And so they didn't get it that day, but they got it the next day. And the thought is once they received the money, they didn't expend all the money. They only expended 350 billion of it, and a large portion of it, I think 50% of that, I think 176,000 they actually spent. And then the remaining amount they were forcing banks to take these dollars. So I don't understand the rationale for the reason why we were asked for 700 billion, and then still why there's 350 to be spent by Barack Obama's administration to decide how that's going to be divvied up.
And also too, on that note, is that when they were given these billions of dollars, they didn't put any oversight. It doesn't seem like there was any oversight involved in this. How in the hell can you give somebody $700 billion and no oversight?
Well, they were like your first commentary said, they were afraid that these banks were going to fail. They were afraid that these banks were going to fail. There was going to be a run on banks, and money was just going to tighten up. And so when you put that fear in front of people who don't really understand economics, like most people don't understand economics, yeah, they want to prevent the
But
sky
that's
from
why we
falling.
elect those idiots in Congress. All right, and I say idiots because that's exactly what they are, doing some stupid stuff like this. All right,
They
seven.
didn't. The politicians didn't decide to do this. The
But
administration did, and
but
they pushed the politicians' hand to make the money available.
but the politicians didn't have to go
They
along
didn't
with it.
follow, but
More scare tactics.
right. Well, did you see the Dow that day? I think it fell like 400 or 500
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
points, and
yeah.
and that scared everybody. And then the Asian markets fell that evening, or that evening. So people were like, okay, we believe you. The sky is falling, and we'll do it. But no, there was no due diligence on this at all.
But I believed that it was devastating if we hadn't submitted the money to the banks, to bail out the banks. It would have affected everything. It
Y-
would have
But
affected things from pensions and stuff like that. And many of us have our pension fund tied up
Mhm.
into
Right.
uh, funds
Mhm.
associated with housing.
Mhm.
So we couldn't let that fall. Our nation would collapse. It would be devastating if that had happened.
But
We can't imagine. We couldn't have backed out of that
no.
because confidence in the system is based upon the trust between banks and financial institutions
Mhm.
and between those who work together to make the economy go.
Mhm.
yeah, but Henry, 163 billion, according to the Washington Post, went for investor dividends. Another $70 billion went to pay bonuses. That's got nothing to do with the trickle down There wasn't shit to. I mean, because they took the first almost wiped out the first $350 billion
On that kind of thing,
on
right?
that kind of
Hmm.
thing.
Hmm.
All right.
But you don't know the details of what was obligated. If you had obligated money to investors for years, you're obligated to pay.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, here's
Yeah,
the.
You
but
have to
like
take care
like
of
like what
that.
they do in Europe,
Hmm.
they if there's a loan made, all right, the government gets theirs first before any of that bullshit occurs. All
Yeah,
right.
I think that's the plan with our 700 billion as well. But the thought is kind of what Henry is saying, is that if you buy a house that is a percentage only, I can't remember the name of it, when you only pay interest only home loan, um, all that extra money that belongs to the bank. If you don't pay your mortgage, they don't have money to pay benefits or for whatever the bonuses and things like that. So when they get this extra money in from the taxpayer, that's one of their line item or business expenses. So nobody said I couldn't use it. So
You're
of
talking
course I'm
about
gonna
a
use it
bridge
there.
loan. You're talking about the bridge.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
At this time, I want to thank this wonderful panel and our new co-host, Miss Osha Weaver. Our thanks goes out to the Flint Inquirer newspaper, educating, enlightening, and empowering the community. Email at ronparker599msn.com. Thanks goes out to Pages Bookstore. Their email address is pagesbookstore at sbcglobal.net. Our sincere thanks goes out to Mr. Steve Myers and John Wilson of the Flint Radio, FlintRadio.com. But most importantly, the In My Opinion show owes you, the listening and viewing audience, a big thank you for your support, because without you, this show would not be possible. This is Ronald Berry Robinson and friends saying for the In My Opinion show. Until next time, stay focused.